Good afternoon and welcome to our special edition of Thai PBS World. We are watching the student-led protest at Thammasat University.
Right.
And this is our special program. You are now with me, Nattha, Komolvadhin.
Right. And Thepchai, Yong. So at least the protest leaders have achieved their most immediate goal, that is to occupy the Thammasat campus, as they have threatened to do so.
Yes, in fact, the university didn't want to allow them to do so, and they locked the gate last night at 8 p.m. But around noon today, they finally could get into the university campus.
Okay.
And let's take a look at what's going on the stage inside the university right now.
Okay, we have our reporter, Kun Donjana Bunnak, who has been reporting from the field since the morning.
Yes, and Kunat is going to tell us more about what's going on at Thammasat University at the moment, especially what they are talking on the stage.
Let's take a good look at what is going on the campus at the moment. We have a live feed from the campus, and so hundreds of people are now occupying the campus after forcing their way in this morning. There was a brief round of negotiations between the protesters and the officials of the university for the gate to be open. But the officials representing the university said they could not open the gate for the protesters. So eventually, one of the protest leaders used pliers to cut open the gate, and finally hundreds of people pour into the campus. And this is what it looks like at the moment. And because of the rain which has been drizzling since last night, the number of people turning up for the protest might not have been as high as the organizers have expected.
Yes, and this is live feed, what's going on at the football field inside Thammasat University. All the protesters can just went in at about after noon time today, after the leader tried to mobilize the protester inside the campus. And it's a bit drizzling at the moment.
That's right. In fact, the protest organizers have scheduled the rally to officially begin at 2 p.m. That means that by that time they would have gone on stage to make speeches. But it looks like the schedule has been sort of put off, and as they're waiting for the more people to turn up before they will start all the speeches and all the activities on the stage.
Yes, and from what Thai PBS have been reporting from the morning, the group of people are quite various groups who come to join the protest, in which the protest organizer claim that it's the biggest rally in years to try to demonstrate against the Prayut government.
Right.
And like now, let's go to Thammasat University campus, and Kun Donyana Bunnak is ready to report to us live. Kun Donyana. Kun Donyana, so what is happening right now inside Thammasat University?
Okay, we are having some technical problems, so we'll get back to her as soon as we are ready.
Okay. Of Thammasat University, which is...
Yes, go ahead, Kun Danyana, go ahead.
All right, I'm inside the Thammasat University, the Thepchai campus, and where I'm standing right now is the football stadium, which is the main location for today's demonstrations. And as you can see right behind me, many of the protesters are still here despite the weather. And so far, the demonstrations remain peaceful at the moment. So today, I will take you through the timeline from what happened this morning up until now. So one of the highlights for today is the key leader leaders of the Thammasat and demonstrations group, Rung Panasaya and Mike Panupong, who rallied in front of the university. But it was not until a large group of protesters that flocked into the campus that caused a lot of cheering from the crowd. And if we all remember last night, Thammasat University decided to close off the campus due to safety concerns. But today has proven that nothing can stop any of the protesters from expressing their demands. At the same time, Rung Panasaya also thanked the university executives and academics for allowing them to rally inside the campus today. And what we may notice here at Thammasat University with the student demonstrations, it's not only the university students or younger students anymore, but people from the older generation also joined the protest, as well as many of these people are currently frustrated with the government. This morning, there were also many activities going on before Panasaya came in at around Sanam Luang and the Thepchai campus of Thammasat University. We'll start from 10 a.m. today. A group of protesters who called themselves the Free Isan Group have rallied in front of Thammasat University, and most of the protesters were actually demanding the democracy and demanding the Prime Minister to resign. And shortly, the policemen have also asked people to refrain from protesting in front of the university, which caused a lot of booing and some sort of disappointment from the protesters. And despite all of this, throughout the day, there are also a number of policemen that were deployed around the Nam Luang area to make sure that the safety of the surroundings as well.
So, Kunat, right now, have you got the plan or schedule by the protest leaders what they are going to do this afternoon?
I haven't heard much about this schedule because things are quite uncertain at the moment, because the key speakers have sort of changed their schedule, and at first when we knew that they will be starting their rally at 2 p.m., but it seemed like it started earlier than usual. They started around lunchtime, so we can say that the schedule is quite uncertain at the moment. But based on some of the reports, they said that they will also use the Thepchai campus as well as the Nam Luang and the Democracy Monument. But we cannot be sure at this moment because things can really change.
And have you got to talk to some young students, protesters, and their parents? Have they come and joined the protest a lot, as far as you can see?
Well, as far as I can see, there are many university students as well as younger students that joined the protest today. So I had a chance to talk to some of them, and they said the reason why they decided to join the student demonstrations today because they believe that they all want to be part of this history, and they felt that they're the ones who can make the change in society, and they are the ones who are supposed to speak up and make changes for the future and their country. Most of the students I talked to were university students as well as high school students, and what they really wanted from the government is that they want the government to amend the constitution, reform the monarchy, as well as other things such as reform the education system as well as improving the economy, because they felt that the government has failed to do so. And ultimately, for some of the protesters that joined today, they also wanted the whole government to resign. Earlier today, I also had the chance to talk to one of the key speakers for today's event. His name is Hong Tae, who will be expressing his views on the stage today. He told us that he hopes that the government will make a change and come up with a new election after the protests are over. So let's have a listen to what he had to say.
I'm gonna speak about it and the criminal that by the state and government that do to the student or the people in Thailand. I think this issue is important because this is the biggest protest in this year, and this gonna be the important things that we're gonna forward to democracy in Thailand. I think this is not just because the people state or angry to the government, but
And that's the latest from Thepchai campus at Thammasat University. And as you can see, there are a lot of people cheering and supporting each other at this event.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Kun Nat, for your report for now. Thank you.
Okay, that was
Thank
Kun
you.
Donjana Bunnak, our reporter on the scenes.
Yes.
Now let's go back to the moment this morning when the protesters forced their way into the campus. There was a tense moment when the protesters were trying to negotiate with the university administration for the gate to be open, right?
Yeah.
But it very clear that the officials representing the university were adamant that they would not allow the students to go in. So the leading the protesters in the negotiations were Kun Panasya Sithi Jilawattanagun and Panupong Jatnok. Panasya is one of the student leaders and who has been most vocal on many political issues. And Panupong Jatnok is a political activist who has been also making a lot of noises against the government. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is Kun Panasya trying to talk to officials of the university, convincing them to open the gate. In fact, the gate, even though it was locked, but it was lightly locked.
Yeah.
It was,
The key wasn't that big, the
Yes,
lock
right.
is not that big.
so okay. Also seen is Kun Panupong Jatnok together with Kun Panasya negotiating with the university officials. So after about 5 minutes, when they couldn't come to an agreement, so the pair decided to use pliers to cut
The lock.
cut the lock and open up the gate.
Yeah. So this appeared quite tense moment
Yeah.
this morning when they tried to break into the gate to get into the campus.
So it's quite obvious that the officials made no attempt to stop them because the order to prevent them from entering the campus was an official standing of the university. But of course, it was obvious that they had no intention to use any means to stop them from entering the campus.
Yes. So we could say that finally protesters could get in the campus
Yeah.
successfully.
Yeah. But there were earlier news reports that the university deliberately allowed the students or the protesters to go into the campus. But later on, it was clear that the protesters forced their way in.
Yeah. And as far as we got the report, tonight probably they will be mobilizing some protesters to station and to have another stage in Sanam Luang area. And that could be a key moment because as far as we know, at about 9 o'clock, they will have their own pressing demands again and tell us about their clear demand for this protest. And right now we have another correspondent in Sanam Luang area, that's Kun Kittipat Chun Sukjit. So he has more to tell us. So Kun Kittipat, tell us more about what you have right now, what you can tell us more.
Good afternoon, Kun Thepchai, Kun Nattha. Right now, I am beside Sanam Luang in front of the Prometheus or the Mother Earth. Okay, right now, actually, mostly of the important situations happened at the Thammasat University. So there's not much happening here. But mostly of the facilities is located here. The facilities to give the convenience to the protesters, such as the foods or the toilets and the beverage and the first aid. So we can see that there are the public toilets over there. Here, in this location, we have 4 public toilets. 2 from BMA, Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, and 2 from private sections. As we know that this protest is gathering of the 3 core groups as the United Front of Thammasat University, Free Youth, and the Students Union of Thailand. But it's mainly civil groups that come here to participate in the demonstration as a volunteer. And this morning, I've talked to the member of the coalition of the Salaya students who come here to help the protest about the first aid volunteer. So let's hear the sound. It's the voice from him.
Of Salaya student in Phaki นักศึกษา Salaya in Thai. So in our university has a lot of medical students, so we recruit them to help us here. Whatever I agree with them or not, but I will protect their right to speak.
What is your process to help people? Like if someone pass out, how you help them?
So we have medical student and licensed doctor and nurse. So we have our protocol to help out there. We prepare the medicine and tools. So here's an ambulance for the emergency cases. We connected with Sun Elawan, Kothama, and Siraj hospitals and Klang hospital.
So besides the facilities that located here, yes, okay. There's another highlight that located here is the ILAW, one of the famous or the well-known Facebook page. So ILAW opened booth listing 50,000 names of people in order to call for the reforming of the constitution. The booth will be closed at 9 p.m. tonight, and today will be the last day of the listing of the name of people.
Okay. All right, so that's Kun Kittipat, right, reporting from Sanam Luang. And he's talking about this, the center being set up by this so-called ILAW legal group, which has been active in gathering signatures from members of the public to push for an amendment to the constitution. And ILAW, of course, has been supportive of the students' protest. And so they set up a center next to the rally site,
Yes.
so that people can sign up and to support an amendment to the constitution.
Yeah, it's part of their plan to take part in the rally from the 10th of August to 16th of August. And today, an ILAW claimed that as of now, they have more than 70,000 names already. And they aim at having more than 80,000 names to send their proposal for amending the constitution. So thank you very much, Kun Kittipat, for your report about facility and ILAW station over there. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the demands of the protester is to amend the constitution or to write up a new, totally new constitution. So that's one of the most outstanding demands. And certainly on the stage today and tonight, they will be hammering on this very important issue.
Yes.
So as Kun Nattha just mentioned, that even though the ongoing protests, including the one today, are being engineered by students, but it's quite clear that participants of the rallies and today's demonstration come from diverse background. And most prominent of them all are members of the so-called Red Shirt movement, the political group which was set up to support former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. And it was the same group of people who were involved in the street demonstrations that ended in violence back in 2010. So the members of this group, this research movement, turned up in full force today. In fact, among most of the people who broke into the campus this morning were research members.
So it's same old scene that we could see again, that they have food supply and having some group who can do various activities. And the research groups are people who have experience before with the previous demonstration happening in Bangkok, especially during Kun Apisit government. And today they have become alliance with Student Led. And it is expected before that today the proportion of the demonstrator will comprise with university students, high school students, probably with their parents, and also research. It means that it turns out that older generation have joined younger people for the protest against the government.
And we expect most of the speakers on the stage to be student activists, right? But we have to wait and see whether or not representatives of some of the other groups, including the research movement, will be on the stage as well to make their points. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, that the most immediate goal of the protester has been achieved, that is to occupy the campus of the university. And as our reporters mentioned, that the students and the protesters also have intention to occupy parts of Sanam Luang, which is opposite the Thammasat University. But the issue is that the Sanam Luang is considered to be a part of the royal compound, which is supposed to be legally off limits to political activities. But the students insist that they will want to use the space there for their activities.
Yes, and it's still being kept as a surprise, as they told us that they would have a big surprise at about 9 p.m. and we still don't know what they would mean with that. But if we take a look at the previous demands by the student-led protest from the 10th of August, the very first rally stage they have at Thammasat University, Rangsit campus, they came up with the 3 demands. So let's take a look. What's the 3 demands from the students? The first one is to pressing for new constitution, having house dissolution, and an end to harassment of government critiques. So that's the students' demand. And they also have 2 standpoints: no military coup and no national unity government. And the most obvious one was 10 manifesto, which was read by Kun Rung Panassaya, one of the leaders of the protesters. And she came up with the 10-point demand on reform of monarchy on the 10th of August. So the 10 points comprised House of Representatives be entitled to hold the monarch accountable for his conduct, abrogate Article 112 of the Criminal Code, clear division of crown property and personal property of the monarch. Next, reduce state budget for the monarchy, abrogate the monarch's personal agencies, including the Privy Council, end all royal charity, no public opinions on political issues by the monarch, no glorification of the monarchy, investigation into death of critiques of the monarchy. The monarch will not endorse any more military coup. And they summarized the 10-point manifesto as one dream: to have constitutional monarchy.
So we expect the student leaders to repeat these demands on the stage tonight, and that could be part of the big surprise that they promised to deliver tonight. And of course, this is one of the issues that is quite divisive, because the demands for reform of the monarchy may have struck a right chord with supporters of the student protests, but of course have distanced people who otherwise they still have royalty. They still believe that the monarchy is above this kind of criticisms.
Yes.
And of course, when Kun Nattha mentioned Kun Panassaya, right, Rung, her nickname, as a key person in delivering this very sensitive message. And this morning, Kun Panassaya was one of the key leaders who tried to negotiate with the university for the protesters to go inside the campus. So who is she? She's only 21 years old, and very young, and a student of anthropology and sociology, student of Thammasat University. And but she has become a very, very famous face of the student movement. If you remember that a day after the administration of the university announced it was banning the student rally from its Thap Prajan campus, Rung or Panatsaya held a news conference to declare that she and her student friends were not going to yield and would go ahead with the plan to use the campus for their rally. And they insisted on having the rally on the campus even if they had to force their way in. And that's exactly what they did this morning, Kudata. And Panatsaya is currently a spokesperson of the Students Union of Thailand, one of the student groups driving the anti-government demonstrations. And of course, compared to other student activists, Panatsaya could be considered a newcomer on the scene. But she certainly wasted no time in stealing the spotlight. And this is what she did on the night that this earth-shaking message was delivered. She took the center stage at the rally at Thammasat University at the Rangsit campus on August 10th by reading out the 10-point demand aimed at a sweeping reform of the monarchy. And the moment was considered to be a turning point for the anti-government protests. Until then, as we all know, student activists had to largely confine their demand to political changes. And that was the first time that one of the country's most revered institutions came under such open assault. The bespectacled 21-year-old sociology and anthropology student called for, among other things, scrapping of the draconian least majesty law and an end to glorification of the royal family. And Panatsaya first emerged on the scene in early June this year when she was issued with an arrest warrant for violating the COVID-19 emergency law by taking part in the protest over the disappearance of Vanchalerm Satsaksit, a Thai activist abducted in broad daylight in Phnom Penh. And Panatsaya, who is better known as Rung among friends, said she has been tailed by authorities ever since. And Kudata Rung admitted in interviews that she understands that she is putting her life on the line by touching on this sensitive issue of the monarchy. But she insists that if people read the 10-point manifesto carefully, they will understand the students' intention. And when was asked whether she was afraid of dangers that could befall on her, she said, "I know I am at risk of going to jail or being tortured or even dying, but I don't think this is a time to be afraid anymore." So this is another one of the bold voices we have been hearing in the past few weeks as far as the student protests against the government and demanding reform of the monarchy is concerned.
Yeah, 21-year-old young woman who has become the center of the student-led protest with her 10-point manifesto. And it's not only the move that being right now at Thammasat University. Today is 19th of September. It's the anniversary of the coup in 2006, staged by General Sonthi Wunyarattkalin. And it turns out that many countries around the world, 19 cities around the world, have also having this kind of demonstration as well to correspond with what's going on in Bangkok, like Taipei of Taiwan and Tokyo, Paris, Berlin, Hamburg in Germany, Garmisch in Germany, Stockholm in Sweden, Copenhagen in Denmark, Oslo in Norway, Helsinki, Finland, Pristina in Kosovo, New York in America, Vancouver in Canada, Winnipeg in Canada, Sydney in Australia, Gold Coast in Australia, Wellington, New Zealand, and California, the United States. These are all 19 cities having protest.
The protesters certainly want September the 19th to be a new symbol of the modern politics, because they consider the 19th of September 2006 to be the beginning of this current, what they see as dictatorship. So they want to erase that particular chapter of Thai history and want to build on a new chapter that would see September 19 as a turning point. And don't forget the fact that Thailand and everyone in the country is still living under the state of emergency, right? So this morning when the protesters started arriving at Thammasat University, the police came out and warned them that be careful, we still have state of emergency that bans public gathering. But of course the police were not in the position to stop the protest, so they said that at least the protesters should observe or abide by the social distancing measures. And because in fact under the state of emergency, this kind of public gathering is not possible, legally possible.
Illegal. Yeah, and 2 days ago, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha also came up during the TV pool press conference that the protesters have to be aware of COVID-19 situation in which all the medical personnel have been working very hard to keep the guard up, and they shouldn't jeopardize the situation in which Thailand has been recognized as one of the top country which can be dealing with COVID-19 successfully.
Yeah. And in fact, one big question is not about what is going to happen today, but what is going to happen tomorrow, the day after. Because the student protesters have been keeping their cards very close to their chest as far as their plans for tomorrow are concerned. But there has been speculation based on what the student leaders have been saying that they plan to march either to the government house or to some other destination. And of course, in their hands will be the 10-point manifesto calling for reform of the monarchy to be presented to whoever they can present to tomorrow. So that is expected to be one highlight of the whole exercise this time.
Yeah, it seems there are so many surprises. But they deny that they won't be going to government house, and the Prime Minister also warned that there shouldn't be violence at the government house, and he asked security guard to take care of the compound of the government house quite strictly. And with our update of the situation, Kun Thepchai, now let's take a look at Twitter feed of ThaiPBS World, because we keep you updated with the situation, particularly today, very actively on our news feed on Twitter of ThaiPBS World. So you can follow us and see what's really going on today in details, and you won't miss details about today's protest. And you can also read analysis from our website at the ThaiPBS World as well. So we have clips, we have short news on Twitter feed, and some short interview as well.
Now we are giving special attention to what is happening because we believe that the protests that have been going on, including the rally today, are certainly a new phenomenon for the country. Because this is the first time in decades that students are taking the lead in demanding political changes. Of course, the last time that we saw students heavily involved in such activity was back in early 2000, right?
Yes.
And not even early 2000, in late 1992, when there was the uprising, and earlier back in 1973, when the uprising in October of that year. So this is the first time in decades that we see active student participation in politics.
Yes, and we also have our Facebook pages. You can also visit our Facebook pages on Facebook on ThaiPBS World. We keep you updated with all the details, all the news, photos and video clips as well. So it's social media platform that you can follow and stay updated with us. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and on Instagram as well. And of course on our website thaipbsworld.com.
And throughout this afternoon and tonight, we will be keeping you updated on the letters from Thammasat University. But whenever there is something breaking, we'll come back to you immediately.
Yes. And in order to get to know some of the young leader or protester, because they don't only have Kun Panasaya or Kun Rung, and they have some others as well to be called leaders of the student-led protest. So getting to know some of them from this report.
ทารก2 คนเกิดมาในเวลาเดียวกันพูดกันอย่างตรงไปตรงมามันอาจจะเป็นเรื่องธรรมดาเป็นเรื่องที่เป็นไปได้ที่เด็กคนแรกอาจจะโชคดีกว่าเด็กคนที่2ย้ำนะคะว่าเป็นความโชคดีที่ได้
Panasaya Sithi Jirawatanakun may be a newcomer on the scene, but she wasted no time in stealing the spotlight. She took center stage at the rally at Thammasat University on August 10th by reading out a 10-point demand aimed at a sweeping reform of the monarchy.
It was a turning point for student activists who had until then largely confined the demand to political changes. And it was the first time that one of the country's most respected institutions came under such open assault.
The bespectacled 21-year-old sociology and anthropology student of Thammasat University called for, among other things, scrapping of the draconian lese majesty law, an end to glorification of the royal family, a reduction in public funding for the monarchy, and abolishing of the Privy Council, advisors to the king. A spokesperson for the Students Union of Thailand, one of the students' groups driving the anti-government demonstrations, Panasaya emerged on the scene in early June. She was issued with an arrest warrant for violating the COVID-19 emergency law by participating in a protest over the disappearance of Wanchalerm Satsaksit, a Thai activist abducted in broad daylight in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Panasaya, who is better known as Rung among friends, said she has been tailed by authorities ever since, but that has not deterred her from her political fight. Panasaya acknowledges that her stand on the monarchy may shock the more conservative citizens, but she insists that if people read the 10-point manifesto carefully, they will understand the students' intention.
Rung understands too well that she is taking a high risk by touching on one of the country's most sensitive issues. And this is what she has to say.
I know I am at risk of going to jail or being tortured or even dying, but I don't think this is a time to be afraid anymore.
ธรรมศาสตร์และการชุมนุมจะไม่จบเพียงเท่านี้
So that's explainer from ThaiPBS World. So you right now you know who is Rung Panasaya, one of the leaders of the student-led protest.
Let's see, one other location that is being closely watched by authority is the Royal Plaza, where the equestrian statue of King Rama V is located. A group of students had been trying to occupy the area and setting up a stage for what promised to be another rally site for the protesters. And police are not happy with that and are trying to convince the student to move out, but it doesn't look like the protesters are willing to comply with the order. So that is certainly going to be another point of contention between authorities and the protest leaders.
Yes. So it seems a lot is going on in Thammasat University and the area, compound area around Sanam Luang area as well. And that brings us to the end for this hour of ThaiPBS World Tonight special, but we'll be back again to keep you updated with the situation and what's the development so far at about 6 o'clock. So watch us again and we will keep you posted on Twitter and Facebook as well. So see you in about 2 hours.
All right, see you then.